So we already saw that we can compress the data, right? So we have various types of compression available with the data pump. Like we can compress data, metadata, or both. But in 10G, we used to have only metadata underscore only option. So there is no way you can compress data. So only DDL part will be compressed, but not the actual data. So that is one of the difference between 10G and 11G. The other thing is we don't have encryption available in 10G. In 11G we have the encryption. We already saw that by specifying what type of encryption algorithm you want and what type of encryption password you want while trying to import the data. So this is the other difference. Third option, the third difference is we saw like we can rename a table while performing the import. So remap underscore table is not available in 10J. Just remap underscore table is not available. There is remap underscore schema as well as remap underscore table space, but remap underscore table is not available. In 11G we have the remap underscore table. Next thing is we don't have the reuse underscore dump file option in 10G, whereas in 11G we have the reuse underscore dump file. So these are the differences between 10G and 11G version. And also the 11G data pump, it's a little bit faster when compared to 10G. And remember, data pump is introduced starting from 10G. The lower versions of Oracle doesn't have data pump. So they used to use conventional export and import utilities. So instead of data pump utilities, there are two other utilities called as EXP and IMP. So using these utilities, they used to perform the export and import prior to 10G. So these utilities are still available with 10G as well as 11G for providing backward compatibility. For example, in an environment you have database of 99 and you also have the database of 11G version. And the source database is on 99 side and the target is on 11G. So in that case, you have to, if there is a need for exporting the data from 99 and importing it into 11G, you need to have some kind of utilities for the backward compatibility. So Oracle still provides these utilities along with the higher versions, but they are just for backward compatibility. So Oracle doesn't recommend to use these options starting from 10G. But for the earlier versions, this is the only option here. This is the only option available. The other thing we missed is version option. So there is an option called as version. So think that the source database is on 10G and target database is on 11G. Now, if you take export from 10G database and perform an import on 11G, no issues. So if the source is on the lower version and the target is on the higher version, you'll not see any issues while performing an export and import. You can straight away use data pump on the 10G version, copy the dump files to the 11G database, and you can perform the import. There'll be no issues while going forward from lower version to higher version. But if source database is on 11G and target database is on 10G, if you perform export on the source and if you try to import the dump file into the target database, you will have issues. You'll have the issues because the 10G Oracle version doesn't know the dump file. Because the dump file belongs to the higher version of Oracle software, so it cannot perform the import. So in that case, while performing the export, you have to use the option version equal to 10.2. So once while performing the EXPDP, while performing the export, if you provide version equal to 10.2, it will stamp the dump file with 10.2. The dump files are set to the version 10.2. As a result, you can use that onto the target database. So this is how we'll use the version option. So whenever the source database is on the higher side and you have to perform an import from the lower version, you have to use version equal to the version number on the source side. Clear?
Yeah.
The other thing is we'll see conventional export and import now. So you need to, I'll just give you the idea how it works and what are the differences between EXPDP and the conventional export and import. So coming to export and import, the conventional export and import, the utilities which we use are EXP and IMP. Instead of EXPDP and IMPDP, we have EXP and IMP. Okay, and
Okay.
the output of EXP is dump file and output of and log file. You already know there are two options. There are two output files. One is dump file, one is a log file. So even EXP utility will give you two files, dump file and log file. But there is no need to specify directory here. There is no need to specify directory with with the EXP or IMP. So I will not specify the directory. By default, if you invoke EXP under /home/oracle, in the directory itself, dump files will be created. Or else you can provide the actual location where you want to store the dump files, like /backup, /datapump, slash the dump file name expdp_scott.dmp. There is no need of creating an object called as directory, and there is no need to specify the directory name. By default, it will create the dump file in the current working directory. If else, you can give the actual path where you want to store the dump files. The reason for that, why directory object is not required and why you have to specify the location. So the difference between data pump and conventional export and import, conventional export, I'll just make it as conventional export and import, is data pump is a server process, meaning wherever you invoke expdp, dump files will be created on the server where the database is running. I'll show you what does this mean. The second thing is conventional export and import is a client process. As a result, wherever you invoke exp, there itself the dump files will be created. As it is a client process, it doesn't require any directory object because the dump files will be created on the directory where you're invoking exp or imp. So let me show you the difference. So think okay. For example, I have two servers. Okay, let us take two servers. This is test and I'll take another server with the name dev and think that there is no database on the dev server, but there is RDBMS software installed on dev server. డేటాబేస్ లేదు, జస్ట్ ఆర్కిల్ సాఫ్ట్వేర్ ఉంది. Any doubts on what I said now? It has Oracle software, but it doesn't have the database.
No database. Yeah.
So only Oracle software is installed, but database is not created yet on this server. That means, can I use EXPDP and IMPDP utilities?
Yes, PDB.
EXPDP or
Yeah.
IMPDP? Yes, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
these utilities are provided with the RDBMS software. That
Yeah.
means I can use EXPDP and IMPDP, but the only thing is, as there is no database on this server, using these utilities I can connect to the database which is present on test. Think
Yes.
that there is a database called as test on the test server. So while using EXPDP and IMPDP, I can specify EXPDP. Okay, let me write it down. Yeah, EXPDP ఇక్కడ రాస్తున్నాండి పైన EXPDP space user ID equal to Scott/Tiger @ test. So the test corresponding TNS entry, I will store it in Oracle home/network-admin. As there is Oracle software, I have the Oracle home. So within that Oracle home, I'll have the network admin folder. So in that folder, I'll create a TNS names.ora and I'll add the associated TNS entry related to the test database.
Yeah.
As a result, from this server, I'll invoke EXPDP and I'll connect to the test database, which is present on the test server. Still, even though I'm invoking EXPDP from this server, the dump files will be created locally to the database. That means the dump files will be created on the test database.
Okay.
The reason for that is it is a server process. That means even though you invoke EXPDP from any other clients, this is a client server because it is requesting and this is serving. So as it is a server process, it will create the dump files on the server side itself. And that is the reason why the data pump is faster, 10 times faster than conventional export. Data pump is 10 times faster than conventional export because it is a server process. If it is a client process, then it has to first request the server process, and then server process needs to process the data, and then it needs to give it back to the client process, and then client process will write the content to the dump files. So this will take a lot of time. So conventional export and import is 10 times slower than data pump. The reason for that is conventional export and import is a client process, data pump is a server process.
Okay.
The same scenario, if I invoke EXP from here itself, if I invoke EXP from this server, even with EXP, we can use user ID option. So EXP space user ID is equal to Scott/Tiger @test. So using EXP, I'm connecting to the database which is present on the test. And if I do an export of Scott schema, the dump files will be stored on this server, not on test.
Okay.
Because it's a client process, so the dump files will be stored on the client machine, not on the target machine. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first difference is conventional export is a client process, data pump is a server process. As a result, data pump is faster when compared to the conventional export and import. Because with the client process, it will take a lot of time between the communication between server and client itself will take a lot of time. So that is the reason why conventional export and import is slower. Next, data pump is faster. I'll just write it down here. And EXP is slower. Conventional export and import. The other difference is using EXPDP, you can attach to the current running job. And you can modify the attributes of the job. Like you can modify the parallelism, you can add dump file, or you can stop the job, you can resume the job, or you can kill the job, right? But with conventional export and import, you don't have that options. So it is not an interactive based utility, whereas data pump is an interactive based utility.
Okay.
So these are the difference between a conventional database, conventional export import and data pump. Now we'll see how to use EXP and IMP to perform export and import. So the first thing is, like it's similar to data pump. The only difference will be instead of dump file, we'll use log. Instead of dump file, we'll use file. So there is no option called as dump file in conventional export. It is just file. And instead of log file, we will use log. And if you are exporting a schema, in the data pump you'll specify schemas, right?
Yeah.
But here you'll specify owner. Owner equal to schema name.
Mm.
And remap underscore schema. You don't have remap underscore schema in conventional export and import. Instead of that, we'll use from user equal to and then to user equal to. So from user you'll specify Scott, to user will specify Mohan. If you want to remap Scott to Mohan.
Okay.
Yeah. So what conventional export lacks from data pump? So you don't have remap underscore table. You cannot export a specific object. Like you cannot export a procedure, package, function. I'm not specifying table, index and triggers because it has options like tables equal to export only tables, triggers equal to export triggers, and index
Mm.
equal to export indexes. But it doesn't have the option to export procedure, package and function, even views. So remap underscore table is lagging and you cannot export a procedure, package, function and views. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay. The next thing is if you export a schema, you will have the schema definition. So it will first create the user. It will create the user in data pump while performing the import. But in case of conventional export and import, you need to make sure the user is existing. It cannot create the user.
Oh.
So these are another difference. So we'll try to export Scott schema. Okay. I'll just go to slash backup. Okay. Using exp, I'll perform schema lol export to export this Scott schema. So exp is equal to exp space user ID equal to or else I'll just specify it while at the runtime. Exp space file equal to exp underscore scott.dmb. The reason why I'm specifying exp is this dump file is generated from exp utility. So by looking at the name itself, you can specify, you can tell space log equal to exp underscore scott.log and then owner equal to scott slash sysdb. So if you see here in in the output it is not specifying that it exported the schema definition. So that is the reason why you need to make sure the user is created on the target side.
Okay.
And you can see a lot of difference between the execution time of X data pump and this one. This itself will take 20 minutes. See now, this table itself will take 20 minutes to get it done. తొందరగానే అయిపోయింది, బట్ యూజువల్గా ఇది చాలా స్లో ఉంటుంది.
Mhm.
ఓకే, ఇట్స్ కంప్లీటెడ్ ఫాస్ట్గానే అయింది. ఓకే, అండ్ సీ ద dump file size. It is 235 MB. Okay, but with the data pump the file size was around 120 MB, right?
Yeah, 125 something.
Okay, this one is 120 MB and this is 235 MB. So this is another difference. By default, data pump will make some sort of compression, whereas the conventional export import lacks compression. So conventional export and import doesn't have the compression option. So it also doesn't have the compression option. Even this is lagging from data pump. And then the other options are similar. For example, if you want to export the full database export, we'll go for full equal to Y. Using full equal to Y, you can take the full database export. And object level full, and yeah, even if you want to go for a partition, you can just specify owner name dot table name colon partition name. This will export a specific partition. Yeah, the other thing is like if you want to make export and import faster, there's an option called as direct equal to Y. So by default, whenever you're doing an export with data pump, it goes for a direct path read, direct path. That means it bypasses the SGA. That means it will not check the consistent information. For example, if you look at uh, the parent-child relationship, which I told you, EMP and department. So it cannot compare whether the child table has records which doesn't exist on the parent. So that is the reason why there is no consistency in the data pump export. And that is the reason why that is another reason why data pump is faster compared to the conventional export and import. So the same thing, if you want to mimic that in conventional export and import, you have to go for direct equal to Y. By default, it will go through SGA, so it will take a lot of time. So if you want to make it faster, you can go for direct equal to Y. So this will make conventional export and import faster.
Okay.
And yeah, the table exists action in data pump to append, truncate, or replace, right? You don't have that option here. You don't have the options on the conventional export and import. So you need to make sure you drop the existing table,
Okay.
or you truncate the existing table. If you want to copy the entire data, or if you want to copy the table definition as well as entire data. But if you want to append it, you have to go for ignore equal to Y. So ignore equal to Y tells the conventional export and import that if the table is existing, just ignore it and append the data to the existing table. Okay?
Okay.
ఇంతే అండి డిఫరెన్సెస్. మోస్ట్లీ ఇవే, అంటే మీకు యాక్చువల్గా అన్నీ అవసరం లేదు, జస్ట్ ఇవి చాలు మీకు. ఎలాగో
ఇవి
10 11
చేస్తారండి ఎక్కడన్నా? అంటే నేను
రేర్ కేసెస్ అండి, చాలా రేర్ కేసెస్.
ఓకే.
మే
ఇప్పుడైతే ఏమీ ఎక్కడ యూజ్ చేయదు కదా ఆల్మోస్ట్ ఇక్కడైతే.
అంటే
మీన్
కొన్ని
కంపెనీస్.
కొన్ని కంపెనీస్లో ఏంటంటే మరీ పాత డీబీఎస్ ఉన్నారు అనుకోండి, వాళ్ళు డేటా పంప్ యూజ్ చేయకుండా ఆ పాత వాటితోనే ఫిక్స్ అయిపోతారు ఇంకా.
ఓకే ఓకే.
యా, ఆ కేసెస్లలో ఇది వర్క్ అవుతుంది. Yeah. కానీ మోస్ట్లీ సిమిలర్ అండి, దెర్ ఇస్ నో మచ్ డిఫరెన్స్.
ఓకే. అంటే మనం ఇది కూడా చేసామని చెప్పాలా ఓకే అంటే?
చెప్పాలి.
ఓకే.
యా, సో డిఫరెన్సెస్ మీకు తెలిసిపోయినాయి కదా, సో ఇవి చెప్పచ్చు.
యా
యా,
యా.
మీకు డిబిసిఏ గురించి చెప్పానండి. డిబిసిఏ,
బీబీసీఏ చెప్పలేదండి.
okay, so we saw two ways to create the database. One is by invoking run
ఫస్ట్ టైం
installer.
క్రియేట్ చేసాం, యాక్చువల్ డేటాబేస్ క్రియేట్ చేసాం దాని గురించి దాంతో.
డిబిసితోనే చేసామా?
ఫస్ట్ టెస్ట్ ఒకటి క్రియేట్ చేశారు యాక్చువల్గా, అంటే
ఓకే,
సాఫ్ట్వేర్
నేను
ఇన్స్టాల్ చేసినప్పుడు.
నేను ఫస్ట్ రన్ ఇన్స్టాల్ ఇన్వోక్ చేసి జస్ట్ సాఫ్ట్వేర్ ఇన్స్టాల్ చేశానా?
ఆ,
సో there is a utility called as OEM, which stands for Oracle Enterprise Manager. In OEM you have two types of things. One is database console, other one is grid console or grid control. Grid control, yeah, database console and grid control. You can make it as database control and grid control or database console. Yeah, so database console and grid console. So the main purpose of OEM is it's a graphical based interface, and to monitor the table space usage, or to create a table space, or to create a table, or to create a user, it makes very easier actually. So you can just create some URLs, and just you can click some buttons to create user or to create table space and all those things. So
Okay.
basically, in order to configure Enterprise Manager, you have UEMCA, which stands for Enterprise Manager Configuration Assistant. Using which you will configure the OEM. So once you configure the OEM, there will be two things. One is agent, the other one is OEM console. Other one will be repository. Okay, there are three. Agent, OEM console and repository. So first, agent will connect to the database, get the statistics or information from the database, and store it in the repository. A repository is nothing but a database which will store the statistics. OEM console will display the results, will display the information from repository. Okay, so in case of grid control, the difference between a database console and a grid control. The difference between a database control and a grid control. Database control is only for one database. Grid control is for many databases. So using grid control, you can monitor hundreds or 200 databases. So in the real time, mostly we'll use grid control. And I cannot show you the grid control. It's a paid version. I cannot install it. So the only thing is I can show you database control. And database control is one-to-one mapping, whereas grid control is one-to-many mapping. So in case of grid control, you will have only one repository which will be stored on a separate database, and that repository will have the information about all the databases. And using that grid control, you can just select the database which you want to monitor, or which you want to change something, or if you want to create an objects, and then just click that database and then you can do it. But in the database control, you can go for only one database. So if you want to go for another database, you need to log into that database again. Whereas with grid control, you can just log into one and then you can manage everything. So in database control, repository and OEM console will be in the same database. Whereas in the grid console, repository and OEM console will be in separate server or database. So let me show you the architecture, how it works. Think that there is a database on the server test. Database name is test. If you are configuring OEM with database control, the first thing I'll show you will be OEM with database control or database console. OEM with database console. In this case, agent will be running on the same server. Repository will be present on the test database itself. And OEM console is nothing but you'll have an OMS console or OMS software. OMS stands for Oracle Managed Services. So OMS server will be also present on the same database. So this is how a database console will look like. So agent will pull the information about the database and it will store it in the repository, and OMS console will pull the information from repository and it will display you in terms of graphs and graphical user interface. Whereas if you go for grid control, say for example you have one database T, another database A, another database B, and another database D, and you're configuring OEM for grid control. We'll just make it as GC grid control. In this case, you'll create another database called as some X, and then you will install agents on each and every server. So agent will be running on each and every server. Agent, agent, agent. So this agent will pull the information about all these databases and it will store it all together. It will store it in this X database into the repository. So repository will be in the X database, and OMS will be also present in this server, and OMS will pull the information from the repository and it will display it in the graphs. So these are database control and grid control works. Do you find it, I mean like ఏమైనా doubts ఉన్నాయి ఇక్కడ?
అర్థమైంది.
Okay, I'll show you how to configure. First I'll show you database control and then I'll show you the graphical user interface, then you will understand more.
ఓకే.
Here we will will configure the database control. So in order to create the database control, we need to have the agent as well as we need to have the repository. So emca-config all database will create agent and repos will create the repository. So this is how we'll configure a database. So I'll just go ahead and press enter. Okay. Now it will ask you for which database you want to configure this OEM. So I want to configure it for the test database. So I'll give it as test and press enter. And before doing that, we need to make sure the listener is up and running. So first, let me log in as root and modify the etc host. Slash 127 126. Okay. Now, I'm just checking whether the service is up and running or not. It's still not supporting the service. So how to figure it out? The listener is not supporting the service yet. So how to figure it out? Like what is causing the issue? What are the parameters associated with the listener? Show parameter, local underscore listener. First thing you have to check for local underscore listener. What it is set to. So local underscore listener is set to test.4techbees.com and port is 1524. So this is good. And show parameter service underscore names. Okay, test. So it's good actually. So maybe it is taking some time. So let us go ahead and check it. Yeah, it's registered now. So just in case if service is not getting registered, you need to make sure port 1524 is set to local listener and also the host name is specified correctly and also the service names. Okay, now as the listener is up and running, I can go ahead with the configuration. I'll provide the SID as test and press enter. Okay, central agent home. Just press enter here. You don't need to specify anything. It's asking. Okay, I'll do one thing. Maybe I haven't specified the OEM Oracle home yet. నేను Oracle environment సెట్ చేయలేదు అనుకుంటా.
ఓకే.
No, it's set. It's not it for all this. First I'll do one thing. Okay. First I'm creating repository. I'm not configuring it. First step is I'll create repository. నాకు డౌట్ ఉంది అందుకని just repository create చేస్తున్నాను.
ఓకే.
Yeah. Now it is asking me for the listener port number. So the I'm creating the repository for SID test, and the listener port number is 1524. On 1524 only the listener is running. So I have to
Yeah.
specify 1524. Enter. Yeah. It will prompt you for the sys password. I know the sys password is Oracle. Enter. Even the sysman is Oracle. If you remember, while creating the database, we specified use same password for all the accounts and then we specified
Yeah.
Oracle. So even for sysman it
Yeah.
will be Oracle. And under sysman it will create the repository. Repository is nothing but it will create some set of tables to store all the information. Yes. Okay. There is some issue. So I have to look at the log file. It was unable to create the log. It was unable to create the repository. So we have to see what caused the issue. Okay. repository again. So emca hyphen repos space create test. Listener port number is 1524. Oracle. Oracle. Yes. Just y enter. Okay, this will get the repository now. Okay, so now if you see here, as it is creating the repository, it needs to connect to the database. So there is one local connection. I haven't connected
Okay.
to the database, but this itself connected to the database because it has to create some objects inside the database. So I know the objects will be created under sysmon user. So I'm going for create a date. So all of them are created today, 2nd June 2013. So all these objects will be created as part of repository creation. It said the finish, like enterprise manager configuration completed successfully. So the repository is created. We have to configure the DB control. Once the repository is created, we have to configure the DB control. So for that, emca hyphen config DB. Oh, 1 second. Hyphen config DB control DB. Yeah, we have to configure database control. So DB control space DB. These all will configure the database control. Now it will ask you for the SID. Go for test. Yes. Database control is already configured for the database test. Okay. Uh, I'll
Mm.
just do. I'll just deconfigure it first and then I'll go for it. Just take a config place or deconfig annual and test 1524. Oracle home is correct. Just press enter. Password for this user. Oracle. Oracle. This is optional. You don't need to specify the email address. Just press enter. Press enter. Click yes. Enter. So database, I mean Oracle home is correct. The host name is correct. Port number is correct. Everything is correct. So just yes and enter. So this will create agent as well as DB control.
Okay.
So in case of grid control, you'll not have DB control. You'll have OMS server. So if you see here, it says uploading configuration data to the repository. So basically it will store all the collection information to the repository.
Mhm.
It will show you all the metrics like what is the CPU usage, how many sessions are running on the database, what is the activity, what is the resource usage. It will show you everything in the graphical representation. And it's a browser based utility. So you need to give the URL in the browser and you'll connect to the DB console and you can see all the graphical interface. So this will be our URL to connect to OEM. So it will be host name colon port number slash emctl. Okay, it's done. So first thing is once the configuration is done, you have to check the status. So emctl status DB console will give you the status of DB console. So you have to check whether it is up and running or not. So using emctl enterprise manager control. emctl stands for enterprise manager control. So emctl status DB console will show you whether it is up and running or not. So it says Oracle Enterprise Manager 11G is running. So it's up and running and you need to use this URL in order to connect to the database or in order to connect to the OEM. So I'll just copy this URL, uh, open the browser. So you can connect either from the Linux machine or you can connect directly from Windows machine also. I'll show you how to connect from Windows machine too. Okay, so this is the URL. Just click on, you can add an exception, add exception, get certificate, confirm security exception. Okay, so it will give you, it will prompt you for username and password. So if you want to connect to the OEM as this user, just provide this Oracle, and you already know always this user needs to connect to the database as sysdba. So you have to provide sysdba. This will be DB credentials, and just click on login. Okay. After that, just click on the database. There is on the right top, there is a database tab. Just click on the database tab. You will get the home page. Okay. So it will show you the status. So this is, it is saying listener is up and running on host test.4techbiz.com, and it is also showing the database is up and running. So status is up means the database is up and running, and the listener is also up and running. Now the host CPU usage is this one. It is approximately around 25%. Out of this 25%, test is using around 5% of CPU. So the green part is test database. The other light green part is the other thing. So at the Unix level, the operating system is using around 15% of CPU, and database itself is using 10% of CPU. And on an average, the active sessions are less than 0.5 because there is no activity going on. No users are connected to the database. Usually in the real time, the active sessions count will be in a larger amount. Okay, so this is the home page. It will show you uh, the status of listener, database, everything, as well as it will show you the CPU usage, active sessions, and everything on the home page. After that, you'll have a tab called as performance tab. So this performance tab will show you the performance related activities. So just click on the performance. Okay. For this you have to install the plugin. So it's harder to install the plugin on the Linux machine. So what I'll do, I'll use the URL on the Windows machine itself.
Okay.
Let me copy the URL again. You can paste the same URL on the Windows browser. The only thing is, instead of specifying test.4techbiz.com, you have to specify the IP address because Windows doesn't know that host name. 1.127. That's it. So this will go to the DB control. Okay, let me do it in the Google Chrome itself. Or else, okay, yeah, it's working here. There is some problem with Internet Explorer. I'll go for sys Oracle sysdba database. Okay, and also on the home page itself, you can control the database. If you want to shut down the database, you can just click on the shutdown option. This will shut down the database too, and this will allow only if you log in as sysdba. There will be no option of shutdown if you log in as Scott user. And then if you click on the performance tab, okay, so this will show up the graph. This will load all the information from the repository. Okay, so it will show you everything here. If there is lot of activity, you can see you'll see lot of CPU usage. Right now the scale is around 1.8%. If it is on the higher side, usually the scale will be on 100%. So you can see what will be the commit ratio and the number of transactions. You can see the number of transactions, and there'll be some blocking sessions. Everything you can see it. You'll know that in the future classes. This part. Just remember, performance tab will give you information related to the performance. Next, click on schema. Okay, here instead of this, just click on the server itself. Yeah. Here, for example, if you want to create a table space, or if you want to look at the existing users, under the security tab, you'll have users option. Just click on users URL. Okay. It will show you all the users here. It will show you all the information which is present in DBA underscore users data dictionary view. It will show the username, account status, expiry date, what is the default table space of user, what is the temporary table space, profile, when it is created, and what is the user type, meaning how it is uh, identified, whether it's a local identified or external identified. For example, if you want to create a new user, what you can do is like click on create button. It will ask you the username. Just give it as profile. Okay, I'll make it as default. Otherwise, I can make it as demo. It will it will pick all the profiles which are present on the database. Then authentication, I'll go for local. Enter password. I'll give it as Oracle. Oracle. Here I have to specify the default table space. So if I don't know the table space name, I can just click on the touch button. It will show me all the table spaces which are existing on the server. I can just click on this radio button, select, and if you click on show SQL, it will actually show the SQL which it will execute against the database to create the user. So create user username. Anyway, it will not show you the password. Default table space, temporary table space, account unlock, and it is also granting connect role to Harish. Just if you click on OK, it will create the user. And also it will have several options actually. There is role tabs, everything. You can click on that and you can configure. You can assign some roles while creating the user itself. In a similar way, if you want to create some table spaces, you can go for table spaces under storage option. You can see the table space usage. The total size is 100 MB. Out of this, 78 MB is filled. Rest of the size, like around 22 MB, is free. And it will show you the auto extend is on or off. Allocated size, type of the table space, whether it's a permanent table space or an undo table space or a temporary table space, and extend management as well as segment management. And by clicking on create, you can create the table space. Name, test. Whether you want to go for locally or dictionary, permanent table space, read write. You want to go for big file or just smaller one. And just click on the storage, you'll have the option. Okay, 1 minute. At least one data file.
Anna, can we resize the table space and add data files?
Yes, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Here we'll specify the table space name, type of table space, everything. After that, you need to add the data file. So click on add. What data file name you want to go for? So I'll give for slash database. Okay. Here it will create the data files by default on slash database test. If you want to go for another location, just host credentials. Have to give the host credentials. Oracle. Now it will get all the directories, all the mount points. Okay. It's written in the, so if you see here, okay. So under this directory, these are the data files present. If I go for /Oracle, it will show me the rest of the files which are present under Oracle. Just click for go. It will search the files under /Oracle now. So under Oracle, I have app, clone, demo, user1_01.dbf. So you can see all the files on each and every directory also. Just click on cancel here, go for /Oracle and test_01.dbf. Storage, you want to go for auto extend or not? Yes, increment by 10 MB. Maximum file size 10 GB. And click on continue. Okay. If you click on OK, it will create the table space. I'll not click on OK. I don't have sufficient space. I'll just go back to table spaces. Now, if you want to modify this table space, if you want to increase the table space size, or if you want to turn off the auto extend, you can just click on this table space and click on edit. Okay. Now, click on this data file. Okay. If you want to turn off the auto extend, uncheck this box. If you want to increase the size, increase the file size from 100 MB to 1 GB. You can do everything. And just click on continue and click on OK. This will resize the file. Okay. So it also has the options to modify the existing table spaces. Next, if you want to see the users, roles and profiles, everything you can see it from as a graphical user interface. So if you click on schema, if you click on tables, it will show you all the tables. For example, if I want to go for Scott, I'll give the Scott username. I'll click on go. It will show me the table name, on which table space it is present, whether it's a partition table or not, number of rows. And if I click on the table name, it will show the content. I mean, like what columns, what are the data types and everything. And if you click on create like and click on go, it will create a table similar with these attributes. So it will create a table with these column names with these data types, but it will ask you for the table name. So there is an option for create like. If you want to create an index on the table, you can just go ahead and create an index. If you want to go for reorganization, that is moving the table from one table space to another table space, you can do that. So you'll have all the options here. ఇక్కడ వరకు డౌట్స్ ఏమి ఉన్నాయా? యా హలో.
డేటాబేస్ షట్ డౌన్ కూడా చేయొచ్చు.
యా చేయొచ్చండి. హోమ్ పేజ్ లో మీకు ఆప్షన్ ఉంటుంది.
సారీ స్టార్ట్ చేయండి.
యా షట్ డౌన్ అవుతే స్టార్ట్అప్ ఆప్షన్ వస్తుంది ఆటోమేటిక్ గా.
ఓకే యా ఫస్ట్.
అండ్ ఇంకోటి డేటా మూవ్మెంట్ లోకి వెళ్తే యూ కెన్ ఆల్సో పర్ఫార్మ్ డేటా పంప్ జాబ్.
ఓకే.
Export to export files. So you can click on this one. It will ask you whether you want to export the whole database, schema, tables or table space. And it also asks you to give the host credentials and it will do the export.
Okay.
And if you want to stop the console, emctl stop db console. This will stop the console. And also there is agent, as I said. So to check the status of the agent, we go for emctl status agent. So it will show you whether the agent is up and running and it is uploading to the repository or not. So this is a repository URL where it is trying to upload. So as I said,
Okay.
for the database console, repository will be nothing but the same server. If you go for grid control, the repository will be present in a different server. So the host name will be different here. OMS is nothing but repository. So last successful heartbeat to OMS was 821.
Yeah.
So it is keep on uploading the information. Now if you want to stop the DB console, emctl stop DB console is option, is a command. So this will stop the DB console. Okay, now the DB console is stopped. If I click on any of the link, it will go. It says it will unable to. The
Okay.
page is not available because I stopped the DB console, so I cannot connect it.
Okay.
Now again to start it up, emctl start DB console. But in the real time, you'll only go for emctl start agent because the repository అంటే DB control అనేది grid control అవుతుంది కదా, అది separate server లో ఉంటుంది. సో అది మేనేజ్ చేసే వాళ్ళు వేరే వాళ్ళు ఉంటారు.
Okay.
So you'll just go for emctl start agent and you'll go for emctl status agent. Okay, then I'll wind up the class and I'll continue on Tuesday.
Okay.
I'll start Arman.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay then, bye.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Yeah, bye.